Hey everybody, Bill 1911 here. Today we're going to clean and lubricate the model 686 Smith & Wesson revolver. I really like this gun. It's a sweet gun to shoot. It's a 6-shot revolver. It's got a very heavy barrel on the front of it, and that makes it very stable when you're shooting it. What do I mean by stable? Okay, what I mean by stable is that when you're holding a very lightweight gun out in front of you, every little twitch in your body is translated into that gun, and it's always wiggling out there in front of you a little bit. This thing is very heavy. It doesn't do that wiggling. What it does is it swings a little bit, but it's very, very smooth. There's no shaking to it. It's just smooth. And that makes it a really sweet shooting gun. It's really easy to hit the target with this beast. It has a 6-inch barrel on it, so it's a big dude. And I just really like the gun. It's .357 38 caliber. And let's get to cleaning it. Okay. We're going to feature a couple things today that we have not in past videos talked about. This is a silicone rag, okay? It's basically just a towel, okay, that is impregnated with silicone, and that way when you wipe down your gun, okay, it comes out nice and clean, but it also has that protective silicone over the top of it, okay? And that's kind of a nice thing to have. It keeps it from being really greasy and nasty and hard to hold. So we're going to clean this thing up a little bit on the outside just to get her done. Okay. And this particular towel is made by a company called Birchwood Casey. And they make good products. I've never had anything that Birchwood Casey made that wasn't really good. A good quality product. So it's really easy to work with. You can wipe it down like that and it cleans up an awful lot for you. So from here, after we get everything wiped down on the outside, we're going to move on to the inside. As you can see, this was really easy to do the outside of this gun, okay? Now, you can do the same job with a gun cleaning patch and some bore solvent, okay? One of the primary ingredients in a bore solvent is mineral spirits, so that's a little bit oily, and it's always going to be on the outside of the gun. But the good part about using the bore cleaner is that any hardened deposits that are on the outside of the gun, it'll take them right off. It does a real good job for that. So let's get started, okay? So since we've already wiped down the outside of the gun, I'm going to do a little bit more here and there in little spots. But most of the outside of this gun is fairly cleaned up now. It's not horrible. So let's get into the little nooks and crannies that we didn't get into with that rag and try and get things completely cleaned up. Alright, so now I found a couple of spots that didn't get real clean in the past. So right now we're getting in there and we're getting all the deposits that were stuck in there out. And as you can see from our patch, that's quite a bit of junk that was in there. It's also now under my fingernail forever. But we'll get that done. Okay, so we get everything all cleaned up. And then from there, we're going to do some of the parts that are on the inside. Okay, so if you'll look, right back in here, this is called the ejector, okay? And what it does is it pushes your cases back out of the cylinder after they've been shot, okay? Well, dirt and filth can collect in here behind these, so we're going to get in there and we're going to just clean all this up. Just get it nice and brushed clean. Now when I pull this little patch out of here, you're going to see that there's quite a bit back in there. Okay, so as you can see, there was a lot in there. So when you're cleaning your gun, don't forget to get that area if it's a revolver. All right. Another place that's real bad for collecting deposits is right up in this area, right in here, around the barrel, okay, where the bullet leaves the chamber and goes into the barrel. Now, this area, what happens is, as the gun fires, there's a tiny little bit of space in between the cylinder, okay, and the barrel. Okay, that tiny little bit of space right there allows a little bit of gas to escape, okay? It gets by it. And it takes with it powder residue and things like that, and you end up getting that powder, that burnt powder, all over the place on the front side of that cylinder. So that is another area that we're going to get into and we're going to clean. So I'm going to get a fresh patch, get our solvent on it, and we're going to start working on this area. And I think you might be surprised at how much comes out of this area. Even though this gun is fairly clean, you're going to get deposits that are going to build up in there over time. Alright, I'm going to use an implement to get into this tight little corner here that's hard to get to. My implement is being just a screwdriver, but a small one. And we're going to try to get as much of this cleaned up as we can. Okay, now we're going to turn it over and do the other side. Back in the same area. Now this gun was fairly clean to start with. It wasn't real bad. But as you can see in those little nooks and crannies, there's quite a bit of dirt to be gotten out of there. So you're going to want to clean all that up. I'm going to stick it down in here and get into this little channel, which is hard to reach with the rag. Okay. And we're going to get her all cleaned up. So next we're going to do the chambers and down the barrel itself. In other words, the bore of the gun. So what I like to use to clean these things is called a cleaning jag. Okay. So this is a cleaning jag. Okay. If you notice, there's a little point on the end of it here. This point is used to stab through your patch and mount it on your cleaning rod, and that holds it in place, just like that. So I'm going to start with the cylinders. Remember to keep track of where you are, how many cylinders, which chamber you've done and which one you haven't done. Okay. So whatever method you use to do that is fine. Just ensure that you do keep track, otherwise you end up cleaning the whole thing several times. Now, I use a patch that is called double nap flannel. Okay, double nap means that there is kind of a fuzzy texture to it on both sides. You can also get single nap flannel, which has the fuzzy texture only on one side and the other side doesn't. Now the reason why I like these double nap flannel patches is because I just cleaned one chamber and now I can literally turn that patch inside out and I have the other side that has not gotten dirty yet. So I'm going to remount it on my cleaning rod and push it through the next chamber. Okay, now that's got two chambers cleaned up. So we're going to get another one to do the next two chambers. And we're just going to follow the same procedure. Mount it on the rod and put it through the hole. Now the jag is a very tight fit. It's engineered to be very close, and using it you can only put one patch on there at a time. It just won't fit through otherwise. So it's so snug that it really scrapes everything out of that chamber where you're trying to clean it. Alright, so we've got two chambers left, so we're going to get one more patch. And do the next two. Alright, stick her in there. And push it through. Alright, then I'm going to turn my patch inside out like we did before, remount it, and put it through the next chamber. Alright, so now we're going to take another 3 patches and we're going to dry the inside of that cylinder. Okay, and that's going to get pretty much everything out of there. Now I'm going to use the same procedure, just take the patch and turn it inside out, do the next chamber. Okay. Now, sometimes you'll find that your hands are getting a little slippery and you're going to want to get your hands cleaned up a little bit. Well, I keep a rag, just a regular rag, handy so that I can do that whenever I feel the need to. And since I'm feeling the need to, here we go. Alright, so we've done both sides of that one. We've got 2 chambers left to clean. Okay. Now, the same procedure that we used on the cylinder is exactly what we're going to do when we do the barrel. Okay, we're going to start out with a wet patch and we're going to mount it up. And we're going to put it through the barrel. Now on the rod here, the cleaning rod, we have this little conical shaped piece here. What is that for? What that is for is to prevent you from, as you put the rod down through the bore, from scraping the rifling on the end of the bore here. Okay, this area is called the crown. All right, so if I don't have that conical piece in there to protect the rifling there, then that rod is going to bang sideways against that bore, and we don't want that to happen. So we use our little conical device and we put it in, and then we clean our bore. Alright, so we're going to get another patch and wet it. Now, the patches that I was telling you about that I use, these double nap flannel patches, I make my own patches because I clean an awful lot of guns. And since I do clean a lot of guns, I need a lot of them. So making them becomes very economical for me. Now, as you can see, that is a very tight fit down that barrel. It's not going easily. Okay. But you can also see that it did a good job of getting deposits out of that barrel. So I'm going to turn it inside out and run the same procedure again. And that should get us pretty clean in there. And then we can use a dry patch on it and get her cleaned up the rest of the way. Okay. So after we do this, we're going to run an oil patch down the bore, and that's going to prevent any rust from forming. Now this gun is stainless steel, so you're not going to get a lot of rust, but believe it or not, stainless steel can rust, so make sure you try and take care of it. Alright, and we're going to do the same thing, turn patch inside out, use the other side, and that should have that barrel pretty darn clean. So after we do this, I'm going to show you how to inspect the barrel. Okay, it's a very simple procedure, and there's a trick to it that makes it kind of easy. So, if you look down the barrel, which I'm going to show you in just a second, it's pretty dark in there. It's hard to really see down the barrel very well. So what we can do is we can take a white patch, okay, and kind of use it as a reflector. Okay, if I can get it to right angle, you can see, now you can see down that barrel fairly well. Okay, you can see the difference. So by using that as a kind of a way to reflect the light up into that barrel, we can see it a lot better. So that's exactly how I'm going to inspect it. I'm going to put that white patch in there to reflect the light, and then I'm going to look right down the barrel, and it looks clean as a whistle down there. It looks very, very good. Okay, so now I'm going to use that same patch, and I'm going to put oil on it and put it down the bore. So we're just simply going to take a gun oil, okay. I don't push any particular product. Gun oil is, however, formulated specifically for the materials that guns are made out of. Okay, and so I recommend using a specific gun oil formula. In other words, oil that's formulated specifically to use on guns. All right, so down the bore we go. Now this is going to get things well oiled down inside that rifling. And that's going to keep us from having any problems down that bore in the future. It's going to preserve it, protect it for us. All right, so this 686 Smith & Wesson is pretty clean. It looks pretty good. I really like this gun. Okay, let's move on to lubricating the gun. Before we do that, there is one thing about this pistol that I really want to show you, and it's really important. We have a tendency to sometimes do something that's really bad, and that is we cock the gun, we pull the trigger, and we let that hammer go bang and drop down like that. Well, this hammer, I'm going to show you something on the end of it. This hammer, get some light over here for you, okay, has this little part sticking out right here. This is actually the firing pin on this gun. It goes through the frame and hits the primer and sets it off. Now, these firing pins sometimes will fracture right here, just behind the tip of it, and that little ball will come off. And after that happens, it won't fire. You can't shoot it anymore because the firing pin broke off. All right? So these guns that have these firing pins that are built into the hammer like this, don't dry fire them. In other words, fire them without anything in them, because you can snap off that firing pin, and then you're going to have to send it to a gunsmith to have him put a new firing pin in that hammer. Okay, so there are a number of guns that still use this technique. I'm going to show you another one. Okay, this is another Smith & Wesson. Okay, now we're going to open it up and check it. Okay, make sure there's nothing in it. This one also has that same firing pin here on the hammer. Okay, and these guys can snap off, like I said. So never dry fire these. Lower the hammer with your thumb, always. All right, now this is a 6-inch Ruger Security 6, and if you look at the hammer on this one, there's no firing pin on the hammer here. The firing pin is down inside here. It's built into the frame, okay? With these things, I've never heard of one breaking the firing pin by dry firing it. But even so, it's not a good idea to sit there and click this thing. Click, 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 click. It becomes a habit, and a bad one, because what if you are not thinking and you have ammunition in the gun and you just pick it up and start clicking it, boom, okay? So don't dry fire your guns. It's just not a good idea. Okay, on these Smith & Wessons, they have a bar that comes up, and when your finger is not held on the trigger, it does not allow the hammer to go all the way forward. So now, if you notice, that hammer is a lot further forward now, and as I release the trigger, you'll see it push that hammer back out of the way. Okay, this is a safety feature so that you can't accidentally bang the hammer and cause the gun to go off. Okay, this Smith & Wesson and this Smith & Wesson also have the same feature to it. This is actually my old service revolver that I used in law enforcement. Okay, so we're going to lower it down, and I'll show you the same thing, how it pushes the hammer back. Okay, as you release that trigger, that bar comes up and prevents that hammer from going any further forward. Okay, so let's get this thing lubricated now. Now, I always advise on the release mechanism on any gun, okay, where it releases the cylinder to come out, where it releases the slide to come off if it's a semi-automatic. Always make sure that you lubricate that, because if this devil freezes, you got no way to load this gun. You got no way to do pretty much anything with this gun. So we're going to make sure that we get a little drop of oil down in that release mechanism. Okay, it doesn't take much. You don't want to over oil your gun, but you don't really want to under oil it either. So just put in one drop in each one of these places that I'm showing you, and you won't have any trouble. All right, so right back here, okay, this is kind of a gear, okay, and down inside the frame of the gun, okay, right here is a little slot. Now inside that slot is a part called the push paw. Now what happens is that push paw comes up at an angle every time you cock the gun, and it hits that gear and advances that cylinder one position, okay, and it comes back every time you cock the gun, and that cylinder gets advanced from that push paw. Okay, so that's what we're gonna lubricate now, is that gear, because it's got a lot of traffic on it. I mean, a lot of that push paw hits it every single time you cock that hammer. All right, I got a little much on it, so I'm gonna clean it up so it's not making the gun slippery. Okay, so we also want to put a drop on this shaft that goes through, okay, on your ejector. Again, doesn't take a lot, okay. You want to put a little bit on the front of it, same way, because it all pushes through, okay. On the pinion where the cylinder rotates, we want a drop of oil in there, okay. And that allows that to spin nice and free. Now, I got a little too much on there, so I'm going to clean up the outside. All right, so there we go. There is, right here, a spring and a little ball that catches the front end of this rod and holds it steady, okay? So we want to put a little drop on there. All right. There is another little ball that's dead in the center right here, okay. This is connected to the release mechanism. We want a little drop in there, okay. We also want a little drop into that push paw, okay. Now I like to put a little drop in there where the firing pin comes through, because anytime you have two pieces of metal that are touching each other in a gun over and over and over, that's a place where you're going to have things that are going to wear. They're going to get worn out over time. So you want to put a little bit of lubrication in there. Okay. On the back of the trigger here, okay, you're going to want to lubricate what's back in here. Okay. You're going to want to put a little bit on the sides of the trigger and let it run up inside here. And that's going to keep everything nice and free. Again, it doesn't take a lot, just one drop. You're going to want to do the same thing with the hammer, but you're also going to want to, on this little firing pin, it actually moves, okay, a little bit. So you're going to want to put a little bit of oil in there. Doesn't take a lot, okay? Now you'll be able to look down inside the gun from here, and you'll be able to see little metal parts that you can put a little drop of oil here and there inside, okay? And that's going to keep everything free and everything moving properly, all right? So we're also going to put a little bit on the sides of the hammer on both sides, there and there. Now, this oil is almost like a penetrating oil. It will kind of work its way through, and it will oil everything. You'll get everything pretty well oiled. All right, so once you've got that done, okay, we have lubricated the Model 686 Smith & Wesson revolver. And that's it. Hey everybody, Bill 1911 here. If you found this video to be helpful and informative, don't forget to like us, and please subscribe, and by all means come to visit us at askbill1911.com. Also, I want to talk to you about something that's very important to us, and that's your safety. So please, don't try any of the things you see on our videos until you have thoroughly reviewed and understood our safety procedures. If you're under 18 years of age, do not try any of these topics without the express permission of your parent or guardian. Thank you.